Welcome to the Object-Oriented UX podcast, a podcast about tackling complexity head-on, gracefully organizing massive amounts of information, and designing scalable, future-proof, and of course, naturally intuitive object-oriented user experiences. An OOUXer is a powerful blend of information architect, business analyst, facilitator, and UX strategist. If this sounds like you or what you aspire to, you are so in the right place. I'm Sophia Prater, UX designer, chief evangelist of Object-Oriented UX, and your host. Let's jump into it.
What's up, y'all? Sophia here. I just got back from a week-long gardening course. It was 9 to 5 every single day for basically 5 days straight. This is at the John C. Campbell Folk Art School. It's actually just about an hour north of where I live, in Murphy/Brasstown, North Carolina. And it is just a beautiful place. I took the more practical one of quote unquote practical course of gardening, but alongside me, there were people learning how to make kaleidoscopes and recane antique chairs and crocheting and painting. And it is just an absolutely beautiful place. And it was so fun to be the student and to be a student in person too for a few days. And I have thoughts. that I want to share with you. They're a little bit all over the place, but I think that they're going to come together if I just kind of talk it out. So the first thing that I want to talk about is investing in yourself. And before you shut me off, I know I sell training products, right? I am, of course, wanting to convince you to invest in yourself. But I haven't really talked about how I invest in myself. And honestly, after this conversation, you might say, you know what? Investing in OOUX, it's not the right time for me. Or you might say, oh yeah, let's go down this path. Let's invest in OOUX. But I do want to give you some advice on investing in yourself, some thoughts on investing in yourself, investing in training, investing in coaching, investing in experts, because that has changed for me a lot over the last couple years in some really interesting ways that I do want to share with you. And then the other thing that I want to get into is how I actually used OOUX during this gardening course, and just some things that were kind of that were like re-solidified for me as I was actually using OOUX in the course, like the big nerd that I am, to help me understand plants and gardening and the complexity of the plan that I want to make for our property. And yeah, I got a lot out of the course because, well, OOUX helped me, not because, but OOUX helped me a lot to get a lot more out of this training. So let's talk about investing in yourself and self-improvement. So I am a self-improvement, self-development junkie. I have always loved this. I think that the design of oneself and the design of one's life is like the most interesting design project. I have read a lot of books. So basically my method for self-improvement was reading a book and reading it very actively, doing a lot of highlighting, putting things into action. And that was basically what I did up until 2023, which is at the time of this recording, just 2 years ago. And so for context, I started the OOUX certification in 2020. So there was a good about 3 years in there where I was asking other people, I was asking UX designers and product people and content people and information architects to invest in themselves and invest in training, invest in me as their coach when I wasn't actually going and investing in myself. And people did that. And I am like, wow, I really do commend everybody who has been through any of my programs and in any of my trainings for doing that and investing in yourself and investing in your career and taking the time and actually the funds to do that. So I really give you a big cheers for that, because I actually had to learn to do that. It's a really big step. And the first coach that I hired, her name is Gervais Colmos. I hired her in the beginning of 2023. And I'm going to use real numbers in this episode. I spent $3,000 with her. And for $3,000, I got 3 months of coaching. I got 3 90-minute one-on-ones. And ongoing Voxer access. Basically, it's like a walkie-talkie app where like basically I could get a couple questions answered in real time throughout the day, which at the time I was like, I cannot believe I'm paying $3,000 for like, I don't even know what, but I just intuitively knew that she could help me and I went for it. But it was a big expansion for me to do that. And it felt like a big risk. It felt like a whole lot of money. And what I was coming to her for, and I actually was on her podcast. I can link that in the show notes. I was on her podcast and you can hear more about my working with her. But I basically came to her because I was realizing that I was ending every single day feeling like I didn't get enough done and feeling like I was falling behind. I was also questioning a lot about my own authenticity. Like, who am I actually? Like, I was starting to learn about my intuition and cultural conditioning and really looking at like how I was acting in the world and like what is actually me and what have I just been trained to do and who am I really? And where is this coming from where I just can never be satisfied with whatever I get done in a day and having just a lot of anxiety on the ever-growing to-do list. And I was like, this is just no way to live a life. And through listening to her podcast and from also knowing her personally, I really felt called that like she could help me out. And she did. And I was like, by the end of that time with her, I was like, wow, that $3,000 was like the best money I ever spent because she helped unlock so much for me and also helped me with some of those, that was the surface issue. And then it just unlocked so much more and really gave me a map to actually start doing additional work on myself and to start questioning my beliefs and untangling those beliefs and rewriting those beliefs and choosing new ways to work and to be in a relationship with people. And it was absolutely amazing. She really does focus on moms too, moms and women. But I would definitely check out Gervais. She's wonderful. By the end of the year, I actually entered another coaching container with her at the end of the year. And by the end of 2023, I basically unlocked a new area where I needed to work on. And this is where I was like, okay, I understand you do get what you pay for and you can read a book. You can watch a bunch of YouTube videos. There's so many ways to DIY personal development. And I did DIY personal development for decades and I would see improvements. But the amount of improvement that I got and the accelerated nature of that improvement that I got where I actually hired a coach and worked with them directly, whether it was in a one-to-many or a one-to-one capacity, I started realizing I can create a lot more transformation for myself when I actually invest in myself in a bigger way than just buying a $14 book. So recognizing that was a big unlock for me. And I did a lot of work on my relationships, on my relationship to work, on my spirituality. And then by the end of 2023, I was recognizing a new area that I wanted to work on. And that was, for me, my relationship to food in my body and my relationship to my body image, eating, my intuition. And I started really realizing that I wanted to pursue intuitive eating. I grew up in the 90s. I went to a private school in the 90s, and I was recognizing that I was spending way too much brain power thinking about my diet and thinking about calories. And I had so much of diet culture going on in my mind, and I was recognizing it for what it was, that it was all of that conditioning that was really, really strong. And I had gone from a pretty disordered state in my early 20s to what I thought was a pretty good place in 2023. And then by the time I turned 40, I was like, you know what? This is not good enough. this is still taking up way too much brain power. And I've seen the power of coaching. I want to find my Gervais for intuitive eating. And I started reading intuitive eating books. They were not resonating with me at all. And then I found Sloan Elizabeth, and she is just one of the most wise people that I know. It took me about 2 months to find her. So side note here, if you are struggling with something that is taking up a lot of space in your mind, if it is food and body and eating, I would totally recommend Sloan Elizabeth. That is Sloan-Elizabeth, or maybe it's just Sloan Elizabeth. Look her up on Instagram. You can find her. She's all over the place. She's amazing. I would highly recommend her program. And if right now you're like, I've been thinking about OOUX, but Sophia, I hear you, and this takes up a lot of space in my mind too. Like, don't spend money with me. Go spend money with her first, and then go spend money with me, because you'll need all the brain space you possibly can to do OOUX, right? It needs a lot of mental capacity, and you need to free up space. So if it's that, or if it's something else, if you're like, oh my gosh, like I have these reoccurring worries, these reoccurring anxieties, maybe it's a health thing as well. I'll get to that. I've recently hired a health coach. If it's a health thing, I just want you to know, if you like, there's somebody here on this podcast that needs to hear this. And even if it's just one of you that needs to hear this, there is so much power in hiring coaches. And I think that even me as a coach with a program and an online course, I was skeptical of it. But really, there are so many big-hearted coaches out there on the internet that have amazing expertise, and it takes a while to find them. Like I said, I spent 2 months looking for Sloan. I listened to podcasts. I was on Instagram. I was on social media. I was like listening to the podcast. Now I would listen to like 8 or 9 episodes of somebody and be like, I don't know about this person. I'm not sure about their program. Like, I shopped around. I probably went through 20 or 30 different, I would say, influencers in the intuitive eating space before I settled on Sloan and was like, yes. Full body yes to her program. And I spent $2,000 with her. And again, like the best $2,000 ever spent. I did not know that I could be like, as a woman, I always thought like that was just something that you always had to think about. Like I was kind of, and we see this in culture, like even at the John Campbell school, you know, it was family style eating. And now I just see it now. I see people, you know, dessert comes and talking about being good or being bad, or I shouldn't. And just all, especially from women, and my heart just goes out to it was a lot of older women, and I'm seeing these women in their 60s and 70s still having anxiety about how much they're eating. And I honestly can say that I am like 98% cured of that. Like I don't even think about it. So again, public service announcement. If that is one of your issues that you feel like is holding you back from living your fullest life, like go find your person. If Sloan doesn't resonate, but I will just give you the top testimonial. Like if it's you or anybody else in your world who does struggle with that, she's awesome. So that is all to say, once I recognized, like over the course of 12 weeks, basically, really over the course of a year, but I think about 80% happened in the first 12 weeks of Sloan's program, I was able to see this amazing transformation. And at that point, I officially had the bug, and I was like, I have got to budget for coaching every single year. And I'm going to give you what my budget is. Because I want to use real numbers here. And I do understand that it is quite the privilege to be able to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on coaching. But I would also say that I did make sacrifices to do that, right? It's not that I'm like making so much money that's really easy. I had to decide what I was going to spend my money on, right? And what I wasn't going to spend my money on, and recognizing that like, wow, if I can free myself in this way, if I can transform myself in this way, a couple $1,000s is so worth it, especially if it's something that like pays dividends for my entire life and helps free up brain space or expand my brain space or expand my energy. That is something that will give you an ROI. All right. It will totally give you an ROI. So after I started seeing the ROI on that, I was like, okay, what's next? And I looked at my business and I was like, you know what? I've been in business for 10 years and I have zero business training. I have literally been like running a business, completely making it up as I go along and doing very, very little marketing beyond like writing a newsletter and having a podcast and like posting on LinkedIn every now and then. Like I didn't really have a marketing strategy. I'm still working on that. But that was my next step, was to say, okay, I need real business training. So we did invest in a business training program to help us really kind of grow up with the business and recognize that I am a UX designer, yes, but I am also a business owner and I need to treat my business like a real business. There was a lot of underlying beliefs there that I had to work on as well. So I ended up investing in James Wedmore's program, Business by Design. It is amazing if you run your own business and you are a course creator, if you're a course creator or want to create your own course or if you want to teach weird shit on the internet, he's your guy. Also, if you're into the woo, which I am totally there for it. So we invested in his program and I just recently invested in a hormone health program, working on some hormone stuff. I hope this isn't TMI. I feel like we're friends here. And it shouldn't be, right? We don't need to stigmatize this stuff. So I invested in that. And then I also recently invested in another marketing program. So my budget, this is weird. I want to make sure to spend this is like a minimum budget of $6,000 per year on investing in myself, whether that is training, whether that is a gardening class. That was about $1,000 for the gardening class, something that I really wanted to do. I just needed help getting started and understanding how to make a plan for gardening. I did a beautiful garden back when I was in Atlanta, but I had a lot of help getting it started. I wanted to learn more. So I invested in that, whether it's something you really just want to do and you wanted to do it for years. So whether that might be a new skill or a hobby, something that has to do with relationships, whether that is friendship or marriage or relationships with your parents or kids, there is a coach for it. There's so many people on the internet that really, really want to help, and it'll just take a while, maybe a couple months for you to find that person. And when you do find that person, just know those programs work. I mean, not all of them. I've just had a lot of success, and just trust your intuition, I guess. Like if you've listened to their podcast and you've been following them for a while and they seem like genuine people, their program is probably good. And also look at the testimonials too. And of course I'm saying do this for my program as well, right? Look at the testimonials. You probably have been hanging out on this podcast for a while. And just know that there is a difference between following them from afar and then actually buying into their world. That's where the real transformation happens. And that's what I saw. So I know this was kind of a personal episode. I got more tidbits about the gardening course in a minute, but just to sort of sum this up, if you have never invested in training for yourself in a really big way, basically since college, that was me. I hadn't really spent money and honestly, I was really lucky my parents paid for college. And it was just kind of expected that I would do it. I had never spent 4 figures plus on my own continued education or my own development really ever until 2023. But then that unlocked it for me. So if you've never done that before, just know that I understand that that's hard. And it is a step that can lead to, again, recognizing the beauty and the ROI of investing in yourself. And there is so much to that. Find the right person, find somebody you trust, read the testimonials, look into it, do enough research, but then at some point decide, what is my budget for investing in myself? And then go spend that budget. What can you actually carve aside? What can you sacrifice because you know that that investment is going to give you an ROI? I would love it if that is my program. If you're struggling with overwhelming amounts of complexity, you actually want to expand your capacity to take in complexity and make better decisions. And in a nutshell, be smarter when it comes to a lot of complexity and taking it all in. If you want to be able to ask better questions to avoid rework, if you are struggling with worrying that your documentation is somehow things are falling through the cracks, if collaboration is an issue with collaborating with developers and with the business, all getting on the same page, and if you want to be more confident that your designs are just badass and that they're going to be really intuitive and people love them, if that is the stuff you're struggling with, yes, come on in. I really hope that you take a step toward one of my programs. Hey y'all, Sophia from the future jumping in to just let you know, no, I did not plan this episode as an amazing way to inspire you to join OOUX Foundations. It just worked out that way. So I wanted to come in and remind you though, if you are feeling inspired to come on in, it's OOUX.com/foundations. We're only having enrollment open for a week if you're listening in real time around beginning of April 2025. And if not, if you want to go check it out and see what we've got there, it's OUX.com/foundations. Thank you so much and happy OUXing. But if you're like, there's other things that I'm dealing with in life that are really blocking me, prioritize them. Like, what is the one thing that would make everything else easier? Now, it might be OOUX. I think a lot of you listening, OOUX is going to make a whole lot of things easier. And I'll talk about that in a second. But if it's something personal, if it's your marriage, if it's your health, if it is just something that you know will make you so happy if you learn this skill because you've been wanting to start a garden for 2 decades or something, right? And you just want to go take a gardening class. Go do that first, all right? Now, my other argument for doing OOUX first, actually, especially if it's other professional training that you're looking at, is the cool thing about OOUX and learning OOUX is it helps you learn other things. So all of these other courses, because I had OOUX, I was able to absorb the information better. For example, when I was working through the concepts within Sloan's course, the Food Freedom Collective, when I was going through those concepts, I was taking notes in a way. I was capturing the concepts in an OOUX-y way. I mean, it was very, very nerdy. There was a Notion database, but like literally about how I was rewiring all my beliefs in my mind. But it made me such a good student. Like, I am such a good student with OOUX. I've heard other OOUXers say this, and now that I'm seeing this in the last couple of years, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I go to try to learn something, I use OOUX. So I've heard other OOUXers say like, oh my gosh, I wish that I'd had this in college. I wish that I had this in middle school. I wish I'd had this in elementary school, right? I would be very interested if any OUXers out there have taught this to their high school kids to help them study for tests or something. Like, I definitely think there is something there that this just helps you learn better. It helps you understand faster. I mean, that's really what all these processes were designed for, is I was getting dropped into immense complexity and I was expected to just design without understanding it, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to understand it. So I had to learn how to understand really complicated shit really, really, really fast. All right. So that's what this helps you do. So you can then apply it. It's kind of like, this is not only, OOUX doesn't just help you design better interfaces and help you collaborate much more smoothly and joyfully. It helps you understand. And then that is a power skill that you can bring to other things down the line, whether that is a course in artificial intelligence or a course in Figma or a course in, whatever. So hopefully that makes sense. It can be that kind of like one thing that makes everything else easier. But if there's another blocker that you're like, so much of my brain space is taken up by this, go find a coach to help you with that specializes in that. And that just, their message just resonates so much with you. So going back to my gardening class, I OOUX'd the F out of it. I literally created little garden plant cards going into it. I created a Notion database to house my beds and my plants. And there's a relational database, and all the nerdy stuff, like the sticky notes were out and everything. And it made me a really good student. And my instructor was very, very impressed. The other thing that it really helped me do is it helped me ask really, really good questions in class, because this is this beautiful benefit of OOUX. And again, this will help you with any kind of program that you're in. If you have the ability and this skill of not only understanding complexity, but understanding your own blind spots. I think a lot of the time when we get confused about stuff, it's because it's just like everything is just one big blob, right? And we can't even pinpoint where we're confused. And I've heard people say before when they're confused, they're like, I don't even know what questions to ask. Like, I'll be like, do you have any questions? And you're like, I just am confused. I don't know what questions to ask. OOUX and being an OOUX expert, that will help you understand what questions to ask, whether it's a stakeholder giving you a slew of information, or you're in a meeting, or you're reviewing a deck that somebody just emailed you and you're trying to make sense of it. You can figure out, okay, what do I understand and what do I not understand, and how do I ask really good questions about it? So just example, like some of the questions I was asking, there are a lot of questions on recognizing which nouns do I not know what those things are. Usually our confusion is not around the verbs or the adjectives. Our confusion is around, oh, this is a thing, an object that I'm not really clear on what this thing is. So like, just like a little kid, a lot of my questions are, wait, what's that? What is plastic mulch? Wait, is plastic mulch the same thing as crop cover? What is a cover crop versus crop cover? Those are literally two different things. So, and what is row cover versus crop cover? Those were a lot of the questions that I was asking, was like, wait a second, what are the difference between these two things that sound really, really similar? Are these two things synonyms? Oh, no. Okay, this is a type of this. All right. So that just really figuring out the relationships between things, as well as, are these two things different, or are these two things the same, or is this thing a type of this other thing? That was a lot of the questions that I was asking, because I could easily identify, oh, wait a second, I know why this doesn't make sense. I don't really understand the difference between row cover and crop cover. I could also see inconsistencies with even like certain things on how they were being taught. Like, for example, when we were talking about creating a calendar for your garden, he had up on the board first frost date, last frost date, seed starting date, transplanting date, harvest number 1, harvest number 2. And go back a few seconds if you want to like play with this and pause it and say, what is the problem with this? If anybody gets it, it's amazing. The problem with this is first and last frost date that's actually data on your environment, on your location. And elevation as well, like on basically your garden beds, right? Your garden, that's metadata on the garden. While seed starting date and transplanting date and harvest dates are data on an individual plant variety. So the question, and I didn't know that at first, the question that I asked, I was looking at all that data and I was able to say, wait a second, seed starting, transplanting, and harvest dates, does that change depending on the plant or groups of plants? And he was like, yes. Instead of recognizing that, okay, first frost date, last frost date, and then we had all this other data, I could have very easily assumed and created a mental model that there was just one, that transplant date and seed starting date and harvest dates applied to the garden and not the plants. Okay, especially as a beginner. So hopefully that makes sense. Those were the types of questions I was able to ask, these like really pointed questions, and even recognize places like where the instruction was breaking down a little bit, right? Where the explanation was breaking down a little bit. I cannot tell you how many times my instructor was like, that's a really great question. Thanks for asking all these great questions. And I know for a fact that they like actually were really great questions too. Like sometimes we hear that on podcasts with interviewers. They're like, somebody will say like, so how did you get started doing XYZ? And the interviewee will be like, that's an amazing question. Like, no, it's not. That is a basic question, right? But I knew for a fact, like these were really, really good questions. So OOUX can help you with that. Again, so if you learn these tools, it's a tool for learning. It just helps you learn better and actually be a better student. Another thing that I used OOUX for in this class, or like kind of like my OOUX brain power, was I was looking at a chart. So he was showing me a chart of seed starting and transplant dates for a lot of different plants, not just me. He was showing it to the class. And I was having so much trouble processing this. I was like, I made a reel on this actually. If you're not following me at Sophia VUX, a little more active on Instagram these days. So go over there, give me a follow. But I made a reel on this of just like, I was feeling really, really confused by this chart. And instead of getting demoralized and feeling dumb, I was like, oh, this chart is just not working for me, right? So I think that a lot of times we'll be looking at information and a way information is displayed and it will feel dumb. We'll be like, oh God, I don't understand this. This is so confusing. But I really don't think like that anymore. I just think, this is not the way that my brain works. I know I am a smart enough person. I'm not the smartest person, but like I'm smart enough. And this chart is just not working for me. So what I was able to do is I was able to basically make my own visualization and my own chart. I was like, okay, what data is actually showing here? What is happening here? Why can I not process this? And then I got the instructor to come over and help me fill in my version of the visualization. Okay, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But what I want you to take away is I have really amazing diagramming skills. I can look at a diagram and look at data and be like, that is confusing to me, but let me now translate that kind of structure to something that will work better for my brain, my particular brain. And so I had to make it into this like little like timeline visualization. It's like a Gantt chart kind of. I basically turned it into a Gantt chart. And that was so helpful. But it was like a weird version of a Gantt chart. It's like a weird OOUX version of a Gantt chart. But I couldn't fill in the data. I needed him to help me, but I knew how to get my instructor to help me put the information into a format that I could understand. And I thank OOUX for that. Like that's a skill that being able to have like that X-ray vision into data and say like, okay, no, I want to visualize this in a different way so that I can get a good picture of this. Okay, the last thing that I want to mention that just is something that I've been thinking a lot about recently, and that was just like kind of really hit home again for me. I just kind of remembered one of the reasons that I love OOUX so much and I love making an object map and I love these tools is because I was able to actually get away from the computer and be in an analog form with sticky notes and markers, pen and paper, and create really, really effective artifacts and then put them into the computer. So like I had this really nice flow with going from analog, recognizing like when do I need to just like kind of embody this information and feel my way through it with my hands in 3D and moving sticky notes around. And then I could easily put it into the computer and kind of like just knowing I'm going to make much more progress if I do this analog and have a lot more fun too and sort of play with it and then be like, okay, now the dust is settled. Now I'm going to go and put it back into the computer. So I said it somewhere earlier in this podcast episode that I made these little cards. So what I did is I kind of OOUX'd what I thought is all the information I want on a plant. And then I went into Whimsical and I made like little printed cards. So I actually printed those cards out and they were just had like little structure on them of name, whether it's native or not, how deer resistant the plant is, uses of the plant, how much sun it needs, and like a couple other data points, but it wasn't filled in. I filled them in an analog way. And then I could move those around and kind of match them to different beds. I made a bed sheet as well, a printable bed sheet where I drew out the bed and put the dimensions and everything in there. So I was able to do that on a computer, make some structure on the computer, print it out, play with it analog, move it around, and then move some information in a different way back to the computer. So I feel like this is just such a good skill to have, to be able to move back and forth in and out of the computer, not feel like you're stuck in the computer or chained to the computer, and that you have really effective skills for allowing yourself to have that mind-body connection where you can think in an analog way and let some innovation come out just from using pen and paper and color-coded sticky notes. And it's so fun. So I think that this was kind of a rambly episode. It was a personal one. I hope you enjoyed it. I do hope to see you in some of my trainings. I hope you decide to invest in OOUX if you haven't already, or if you have, thank you so much for your trust in me. And I hope you decide to continue to level up into more and more advanced programs. I really do hope you enjoyed that episode and you are feeling inspired to invest in your continued education and to also learn a tool for learning. If that is the case, OOUX.com/foundations is waiting for you, whether you are enrolling in real time before April 8th, 2025, or if you're popping in later on to see what we have going on at Foundations. This is the place to start with your OOUX professional journey. Cheers, y'all, and happy OOUXing. Thank you so much for listening. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit objectorientedux.com/podcast for show notes. Our soundtrack is Fighter by Ruby Bell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Happy OOUXing!